Recyclico, making lithium-ion last forever. Recyclico's patented recycling process achieves up to 100% recovery of battery metals from lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, and aluminum. Recyclico Battery Materials Incorporated trades on the TSX Venture AMY, on the OTCQB AMYZF, and Frankfurt ID4. For more information, visit recyclico.com or phone us at 778-574-4444. Recyclico, making lithium-ion last forever.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Mark Leibovit, editor and publisher of the Leibovit VR newsletters, also known as VRTrader.com. He's speaking to us from Arizona. Welcome back to the show.
Glad to be here, Jim. Thanks for having me.
Do we have a special offer for our listeners?
Yeah, for new subscribers only, 50% off of any of our newsletters for any time frame you select. It's at VR, as in Victor Robert, VRTrader.com, and when you get to the promo code section, just enter 2022 half off, and you get half off. And also, I do also make that disclosure that I am not a financial advisor, nor do I provide financial advice. I just provide our newsletters.
The stock indices setting more new records, kind of chilling out at the time of our interview, but what do you expect to happen there?
Well, I've been, looking for a top here, bearish. I think it's, I made comments on my newsletter. I've never seen manipulation this great in my career. We've seen it up to this point in the last year with the semiconductor stocks, in particular NVIDIA, and before that, including the big seven, just a handful of stocks that are being run to the upside that completely distort what's really happening in the underlying market, where other stocks are just not moving, but only 6, 7 are now a couple of stocks moving, and suddenly all the indexes are manipulated higher. It's just incredible what's going on there. And this is not an accidental thing. It's all orchestrated. And, if I had the power to get a Freedom of Information Act filing done, I'm sure we would find possibly the government itself in there with the purchases of some of these shares to cover up some of the nasty tracks behind them and the mistakes they've made and the bad economic forecast and incredibly inaccurate economic reports that have been published in the past year or two. So, that's part of it. And just, the other day, that's what yesterday, the day before, suddenly the Dow Industrials, which is only 30 stocks, takes off. Of course, it collapsed today, Thursday, but a couple, 3 stocks, in particular United Healthcare, UNH, they use a stock like that to move the index higher, and they did it 2 days in a row, so they only needed 2 or 3 stocks to move the index up, and it's pretty easy when you only have 30 stocks in the index, which has always been my complaint about the Dow Industrials. It's so easily manipulated, and on top of that, they pull out bad underperforming stocks and put in hot stocks to try to goose the price up. There's rumors that they want to put NVIDIA in the Dow Industrials and take out one of the slower moving shares, just to keep the index up. So, I hate to use the word fraud, it's horrible what goes on Wall Street, the way prices are manipulated. You just have to play the game, decide what stocks you want to trade, what to avoid, or just sit in treasuries and let other people play the game. But, it's just incredible, and I see it. It's just some dramatic examples here in the past year and the last few days. So, meanwhile, the market itself here, is due for a sell-off into the fall. The question is, did we top out day before yesterday? We have the full moon on the 21st. And in a sense, we're rallying or have been rallying into the full moon, and many times you get change of directions around the lunar cycles, and, we could get just a sharp sell-off here, rally again maybe in early August, and then come down again, and so much uncertainty regarding the assassination attempt, and, I've been writing in my newsletter about a expected black swan event, and maybe I just am psychic, or I just have good intuition, and sure enough, this thing occurred. and I expect probably to see more of these coming just from left field. We have a lot of criminals out there in government and other places, and who knows what could happen, between now and the election. So anyway, we don't want to get into a political discussion here because we'll get blackballed, but in any event, we're due for a shakeout. So anyway, we went short. We made some nice money today on our inverse position, and we liquidated a lot of stocks in the last couple of days. We kept, just a few handful names like the oil, so I kept some of the oil names. But, even gold, we exited our gold share position. We had huge profits in some of the double long ETFs in gold. Doesn't mean I won't get back in, but it looked like a little bit of a top there, or even maybe a double top in gold. So, there's a risk of a bigger correction in gold in the weeks and months ahead. We'll see if that unfolds. I could be wrong on that, but, I just have this intuition that, $300-400 correction in gold is not out of the question, which would get you back down to 2,000 or less. And then from there, perhaps we would resume the bull market. We'll just have to see if that unfolds. We just play this day by day, technically. So, a lot of volatility between now and after the election. If you can get some of the swings here, and as we just did here on the short side, there should be, some nice opportunities going forward. We do have the election itself, and there'll probably be further attempts to rally the market. So we're not going to zero or anything like that. We're just going to see a lot of action, which I love. It's VR trader. I mean, I love to see Dow down 500 points one day and up 500 the next. I mean, if you can catch a piece of some of these moves, that's what gets me up in the morning, and that's the horse race that we like to play. And more of this, the better.
With the stocks heavily weighted towards the so-called Magnificent Seven, is there any money to be made if it's not a NVIDIA, Apple, or Microsoft?
Well, Tesla came back. They counted that one out as dead, and suddenly, this is another shenanigans move. Suddenly order flow, deliveries surprised analysts, and they took the stock right back up again, $100 an ounce from where, not an ounce, a price from confusingly gold, $100 up from its low. So, they pick their plays, and one of the things I love about watching the volatility of the market is waiting for situations like a Tesla that they take down big, everybody's bearish on, and suddenly it reverses back to the upside. And there's an old manipulative rule that I learned decades ago from my teachers that, if you want to buy stocks, you drive them down, you hit them with bad news, you hit the bids, get everybody out, you accumulate, and you do the opposite when you want to unload the stocks. You run them up, hit the stops, come out with good news, and unload into the rally. So that's what they did with Tesla. Everybody thought it was a goner, and suddenly it takes off on supposedly a surprise news story, which I'm sure was known all along, and it was just part of the manipulative process. So, you understand, I come from a little bit of floor trading background. I saw it on the floor. You don't want to call it a dishonest business because there's a lot of honest people in the business, but there are a lot of bad players, and some of the biggest on the street, move stocks around. So there's a story, I think it's still current, but in recent years, a big company like Goldman Sachs, you find out that their trading desk doesn't lose money. That's always profitable. And how is that possible? There's no such thing as a trading desk or a trader that always makes perfect trades. So there's obviously some shenanigans out there. So that's a part and parcel to the game. You got to buy them when they're down, when they're negative, and you got to sell them when they're up and they're positive. So right now, what other stocks would they use, to move the market? As I mentioned a few moments ago, in the Dow, they suddenly rally United Healthcare, and that takes the Dow Industrials up. Just not too many weeks ago, there was negative stories in United Healthcare, if I recall, and they were taking that stock down, and then suddenly things change, and overnight, like Tesla, it suddenly reverses. So a lot of players, play with the news, and a lot of traders play with the stocks, and it's just a fun game. It's Las Vegas to the umpteenth degree, watching the charts and trying to figure out what these smart guys are trying to do or undo. And it certainly makes it exciting, Jim. So I'm not, negative. I love the action. I always compare the opening of the stock market every morning to horses coming out of the gate and trying to figure out which one's going to win the race.
Yeah, what do you bet, the jockey or the horse?
Watching them both.
We'll have more with Mark Leibovit right after this.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Mark Leibovit. Mark, what's going on with the cryptocurrencies?
Well, we exited those as well as a trade. We still have the crypto letter, and we keep some core positions there because our big picture view is very bullish. But they throw the baby out with the bathwater. When the markets come down big, gold comes down, doesn't always go inverse. Crypto can come down as well. We saw a big shakeout. We talked about this last week about the big shakeout in the crypto market because of the Mt. Gox situation. Apparently the trustees settling the bankruptcy there have some ability to go out there and repay investors money, and where they're getting the Bitcoin from, I don't know, but apparently that was a depressant on the Bitcoin price, and it dropped 20%, and now it's started to come back a little bit. But looking at the charts, it looked like we made a top there for a while, and this recovery rally we had since last week may just be a retest rally, and then we might just see it perhaps move lower again. So I'm more comfortable watching it from the sidelines now. I mean, if it's going to go to 100,000 or 1 million, we have plenty of opportunity to get back in, and certainly if Bitcoin takes out that 73,000 double top, that would be a good shot toward moving to about 100,000. So we can make money on that move if we don't make the money in between. So let's just see how it pans out. But right now I'm sort of neutral, out of it, watching, and let's see if we get a buy point under the lows from the last week or so, or whether we see a reversal on the charts. So I'm just trading it, and right now I'm neutral.
What's going on with copper?
Copper, came down, overcorrected. It's the commodity cycle. It's really funny because the commodities, as a rule, were in concert rallying, and they all took a nosedive here in the last few weeks, with the exception of crude oil, which started to pop up a little bit. But just the commodity cycle start to come down. And what's that say? Well, maybe less inflation, less demand for these products, despite the strong economic reports that we're hearing. So, I watch Freeport and Southern Copper as two of my indicators, and they're still in a bit of a corrective mode. I don't think it's going to last forever. I just think they're in a corrective mode, so we're going to wait for another buy signal. So they got overdone, everybody excited. They took off new highs, and now they just, in a corrective phase. So we're watching for reentry, and I'm sure it'll come this summer.
What's going on with uranium?
Similar story, but a little more relative strength. I'm not in any uranium now. URA and CCJ are the two plays, so I'm neutral on both right now. They had, there were big run-ups, and they had a big correction. Actually, uranium did worse itself than the shares. The uranium had a real big correction, and the shares held up relatively well. So I just watched the uranium chart, which we post in our newsletter every day. So I think it just, not as much of a correction, but still part of the corrective cycle of the commodities, which I think is what we just referred to with the Freeport and the copper, just a commodity correction. And theoretically, a commodity correction should be bullish for stocks overall. So, when commodities start to go up, it's a tax. Just like crude oil going up and oil going up, gasoline going up is a tax on consumers. Well, commodity prices go up, companies make less money. So with the commodities coming down, including copper, it should be more profitable for the companies that utilize these commodities, and that should help and be bullish for the market and for the stock. So maybe just a setup for another big rally into the market, perhaps after the fall correction into the election or into the end of the year. But right now, commodities as a whole are in a bit of a corrective phase, so still bullish long term, but we trade them, so I'm not in them at the moment. Just watching for an entry point.
Anything on the geocosmic front we have to keep an eye on?
Well, I'm always watching that stuff. There's a storm watch right now. There's possibly 3 CMEs heading toward the Earth, according to the spaceweather.com. And there's a huge plasma bridge that exploded from the sun that was photographed. It's all on the website. So the impact of these CMEs, the flares could be, they say, July 20th to 21st, so starting tomorrow into the weekend, could cause some, they call minor G1 class geomagnetic storms, and that could affect, perception and satellites on the Earth. In fact, there was a story, we talked about this on the previous big solar flare, that some of the Starlink satellites may have been damaged, that Elon Musk had put up there. And I did read a report the other day about 100 satellites that he had put up were destroyed or damaged severely due to that geomagnetic storm and solar flare. So this is not just casual talk. I mean, the impact of geomagnetic storms on the sun, which have been increasing, and there's some big solar spots on the sun, sunspots that when they rotate in the direction of the Earth, for some reason that creates the ability for these CMEs to come toward the planet and, damage our satellites. And in the extreme case, which is that Carrington event we always talk about in the mid-1800s, you can wipe out, quite a bit of technology here on the planet, if not something worse. So can't do anything about it, just monitor it. The big, geocosmic event for me, of course, as I mentioned at the top of the interview, was the full moon on the 21st. And usually the effects of these could be a few days either side. So the fact we sort of rallied into this time frame sort of confirmed that we were going to get a little trading top here. Doesn't mean that it's going to be a big top, but it was enough for us to get short. So we'll just monitor any future lunar and solar events and look at the charts and see where the overlap is in terms of the patterns. But when you get real overbought in the market and everybody's hysterical, a couple of days ago they took the Dow up 700 points with that United Healthcare story, I'm looking at the sky and saying, well, we're coming to a full moon. They're probably going to blow it off here, and sure enough they did. So it's worth paying attention to. A lot of smart people for many centuries look at these patterns, and though they're not talked about in the financial press, they do have great impact.
Mark, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Love it. Thank you so much, Jim.
My guest has been Mark Leibovit, editor and publisher of the Leibovit VR newsletters, also known as VRTrader.com. If you have any questions for Mark or for any of our guests, you can send them to info@HowStreet.com. Our YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. Find us on X @HowStreet. We're also on Facebook. I'm Jim Goddard. Thank you for listening.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.